I shall be very brief with a topic that I have assigned myself. I believe that this topic also requires some deliberation as we talk about the evolution of our community. The title is The Impact of the Marjaiyya on the Khoja Shia Ithnashri community. So, my presentation is in three parts as to how we developed under this idea of Marjaiyya as we understand it today and addressing contemporary challenges in the way forward. So, without further ado, after Ghaibat-e-Sughra, the concept of leadership as we know it, religious leadership as we know it, by the ulama was limited geographically. The concept of transnational Marjaiyya as we know it today, Ayatollah Sistani, may Allah keep him, is a transnational marja. It goes beyond the borders. This is a transnational marja. This concept is only 200 years old when we look at it. So what was there before? That each city and town had an alim. Within traditional societies, we have the hakim in the town who is a wise man who will give you spiritual guidance. He'll also give you the 3 fada faqih that we used to have, the herbal medicines. They will go to him for counseling. He was the elder, the religious leader, and every city, town, and village at that time had their own leaders who knew exactly what that society was. Somebody come to them for counseling, they would know, okay, which family is this person coming from, what are the dynamics, meaning that intimate knowledge of the community that they were leading. As the world became a global village, and became smaller and smaller, we now have, for the last 200 years, the emergence of a transnational Marjaiyya as we know it today. Amongst the giants, when it came to this transnational Marjaiyya, was Sheikh Murtaza Ansari. His impact, his research into fiqh, and the corpus of jurisprudence that he left was phenomenal. And the books of Risala of the Mujtahids who have come after him usually are sourced back to Sheikh Murtaza Ansari. And then, of course, I'm jumping some of the names in the interest of time, but there is a book called Fiqh and Fuqaha, and a free copy is available. This book was written by Marhum Mullah Sahib. We published it as the Mullah Memorial series of books. This book, Fiqh and Fuqaha, contains 40 of those fuqaha and their works and the concept of fiqh as it is to be understood. It's a small book to read, very concise, but very well explained, as Marumullah used to, that we know. But I'm jumping to say Mirza Buzurg Muhammad Hassan Shirazi, who cancelled by one fatwa the entire British monopoly of tobacco. When the Qajar king gave the monopoly of tobacco to him, one fatwa when he said that smoking, use of tobacco is against the wishes of the 12th Imam, Ajjalallahu Farajatah. This was Mirza Muhammad Hassan Shirazi. Then there are other notables over the period. Muhammad Kazim Khorasani, Mirza Hussain Naini, Sayyid Abul Hasan Isfahani. And this is where, after Ayatollah Mazandarani, our trend or our connection or our thread with the Marajah begins around 1945, which was the very first context, formal context, with the Marja. In the early 1800s, of course, as we know, that some of these Khojas, including Haji Devji Jamal, visited Karbala and Najaf, and they went and saw Ayatollah Mazandarani, who then sends Mullah Qadar Hussain Karbalai to Mumbai, excuse the typos there, to Mumbai to do tabligh, and our tabligh begins, and Haji Naji Sahib was a student of Mullah Qadir Hussain Karbala amongst the others, who Haji Naji actually became Hafiz al-Quran at the age of 12 years. But that was Aidul Hasan Abidin Masandarani. My title is, How Did You End Up Here? Was the title. It's an interesting anecdote. Hassan Bhai, you will forgive me for saying this. When Devji Jamal appears, meets Mullah Qadir Hussain Karbala, એ જ ઓલી વાત છે કે ખોજા સીધી વાત કરે નહીં કોઈ દિવસ. જ્યારે પૂછ્યું when he asked કે કેવી રીતે આવવાનું થયું, આપ કૈસે આए यहाँ? He said, કિસ્મત. He writes, we have actually a book. We have 100 plus books of Khoja history there, and we also have digitized version on that screen there. And we have a book called Hidayat Prakash, which is the autobiography of Mullah Qadir Hussain Karbala. And he writes in that book, and you can check it. Haji Dev Jamal said, Kismat. Second time he said, how did you come here? He said, Nasib. So he said, but how did you come here? Hawaya salwatu paraiva. That we had left to go for Hajj. But we ended up here. Why? Because somebody on the way told us that the sawab of one ziyarah is equivalent to 70 Hajj. So we are here. Bargain hunters. So Devji Jamal was told by Mullah Qadir to say, let us take you to Ayatullah Mazandarani and he will explain to you. And he was asked that, but have you performed your wajib Hajj? He said, no. So he said, then you should have gone for Hajj first. This is amongst the mustahabat. And you should have gone for Hajj first. And the conversation was that there are so many beliefs that we have, which are, beliefs that need to be revised. Can you send us someone to guide us? This is how Mullah Qadir Hussain Karbala ends up, as Hassan Bhai alluded to. And he had to be persuaded to actually go there, and ultimately he did. And alhamdulillah, we are where we are today. So, the era of Tabligh began. We still had, this idea of Mullah Qadir Hussain Karbala. In fact, guiding, and slowly we started developing our knowledge about the faith of the Ahlul Bayt. A notable feature, which Hassan Bhai reminded me when I interviewed him for the Khoja documentary, bonus footage. By the way, many of you have asked me, when is the DVD coming out? Is it coming out? Somebody said, Qiyamat pehla nikli jase ke nahi? Inshallah, we will be releasing it around October time. The reason why we are not releasing it right now, the documentary is done, but we are adding some bonus footage. We have 100 hours of footage, and we'd like to make sure that at least some of this footage we benefit. But when I was interviewing him, he reminded me, correct me if I'm wrong, Hassan Bhai, that over that period, Lucknow was the seat of Shia learning. We had hardly any interaction from Lucknow or anywhere else. The mullahs of Zanzibar, the mullahs of Mumbai, following the footsteps of Qadir Hussain Karbala, were the ones, Haji Naji and others, who came to us to guide us to the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. And if you look at the documentary towards the end, we actually have printed the names of those mullahs in golden letters in the documentary to remind the future generations that these were the mullahs who dressed like us, like everybody else. They went to the store like everybody else, and they came and they did their work of religion as people who are within the society. They did not sit on a pedestal, nor did they make mullahism or the profession of a mullah. They earned their living and they served the community lillah. And that was the barakah, and that is why we are what we are today. We are a product of those. So, we're coming back to the transnational Marjaiyya, that as we developed the relationship with the Marjaiyya, after that we had Aga Burujardi, we had Aga Mohsin Hakim, and I use the word Aga very pointedly. This idea that emerged of Ayatollah and Imam being referred to the Mujtahideen is post 1979. You know what I am referring to. We, and this, Hassan Bhai may have said it in jest, but these were the aghas who truly were able to give us the support that we needed as time went on. And since then, the Khoja Shia ethnic community has been blessed with the support of the Marjaiyya, be it Ayatollah Burujardi, be it Ayatollah Hakim, or be it Ayatollah Al-Khoyi and Ayatollah Gulpaigani, Ayatollah Araki, and Ayatollah Sistani. This is the majority of the Khojas have followed that lineage. That by way of spiritual guidance and allowing us the use of hukuk to fund our projects. In return, our leadership endeavored to educate the community to pay its hukuk funds and centralize our activities, and hence we have all these centers and the structure that we have. Our leadership has always been proactive in communicating the community's needs and challenges to the Marjaiyya and seeking that guidance. This has been a two-way street over a period of time. This connection was, as I said, with Ayatollah Sayyid Abul Hassan Isfahani, Ayatollah Burujardi, Sayyid Muhsin Hakim, Ayatollah Al-Khoyi, and so on and so forth. At an organizational level, very first time that we received an ijaza, that coveted document, was to Marhum Ibrahim Sharif in Arusha, and this was the first wakalat given to the institution of a Khoja Shia ethnic community. And since then, we have continued that process of holding the wakalat from the Marjaiyya. The president holds that wakalat on behalf of the community. Fiqh does not permit, does not recognize, like the companies in the West, as an entity. Therefore, it is given in the name of an individual, but it is given as long as that person holds office. This has been our trait over a period of time. The review is necessary to understand where we are coming from. नहीं तो मुल्ला नसरुद्दीन जो था कि नसरुद्दीन उंधे गधेड़े जाता था. Somebody asked him कि मुल्ला, is that a way to ride a donkey? He said, I'm more interested in when I am coming from than when I am going. Point being that we have to go back and understand that there was an unquestioning approach, respect of the Marjaiyya by the leaders, and hence the Khoja Shia ethnic community. This is who we were. In turn, the Marjaiyya have supported the elected leaders of the community. They acknowledge that a leadership emerging from within a community is best placed to understand its challenges. This is our history. And this is why it's worked so well with the Marjaiyya of that time, and it continues to work. And I'll come to the progression. Hassan Bhai said so many shairis, I don't know as many as he does. But there's a shair which says, Kashti ka zimmedar fakat na khuda hi nahi. Are kashti mein baithne ka salika bhi to chahiye. The idea is that we as a community gave that respect to the leadership, and through that the Marjaiyya gave respect to the leadership to say, these are the people. And the Marjaiyya have acknowledged the structure of the Khoja Shia ethnic community. We are under a microscope, true. We are also under a microscope because a lot of people are studying to say, what are those critical success factors of this community? And why do we have the organizations that we have are some of the best run? I submit to you, my brothers and sisters in Iman, that one of the factors was the vast majority of the community as a whole made ruju, meaning went towards one particular personality in the Marjaiyya. And at the same time, as we said, two-way process, that we understood that the onus of keeping the Marjaiyya abreast of the challenges of our time rests upon us. He does not have, ilmul ghaib, that he is going to know everything. we have to convey. Hitherto, our leadership has been successful to various degrees, depending on which prism one looks at, in terms of conveying our needs to the Marjaiyya of the time. These factors have stood us in good stead in the past. So now the good part is over, ladies and gentlemen. We now come to the part, I've got one more slide to cover, the good part, the legacy of serving our humanity. That the progress of the Khoja Shia Ethnic community, as Hasnain alluded to this morning, a community that has no land that it can call its own, a community that has no nation that it can call its own, a community that is losing a language that it can call its own, has survived almost intact with a beautiful social capital. Each one of you can walk into any home anywhere in the world where there is a Khoja who lives. We will make one phone call, you are assured of nothing, if nothing else, at least kadhi and khichdi in that house. This is our social capital that we have. So this legacy and the World Federation, 39 years of service, has been a close relationship with working with the Maharaj. Now, the dynamics are evolving. Nothing remains the same. Much as we would like to be nostalgic about the past, the communication with the Marjaiyya is now being filtered. The fast-paced world and the conflicts that we have in the Middle East means that the focus on our comparatively minute community in that part of the world is of course decreasing. When you have ISIS invading your land, is it that important to look at what the Khoja challenge is? These are the realities on the ground, mu'mineen. And then, of course, there are voices of dissent, particularly amongst our intellectuals and our youth, that we sometimes hide to say, nahi, 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 ab to marja che. Wait, the marja is not masoom. We have the highest level of respect for the erudition. But the idea is that if there are voices of dissent, if there is intellectual rigor, if there is debate, then let us debate so that we have our faith, which is a sound faith with critical thinking. And I have said this now numerous times, to say that as a community we need to move away from this culture of dependency and be confident that the actions that we will take, that what we will do with knowledge, study, that we are capable of making decisions. So the whole idea is that we have to move away from this culture of dependency. And then there are, major thinkers of today that we sometimes try to just brush under the carpet. How many of us know about the phenomenal work of Abdul Karim Soroush? The man who was moved away, he was almost about to be killed in Iran for the thoughts that he put forward. His magnus opus, the theory of evolution of religious knowledge, as to how religious knowledge develops over a period of time. The hermeneutics that he was talking about. I will not bore you with that. You can read up, Abdul Karim Soroush. But in simple language, what he said was, and look at the simplicity and the beauty of the thought of Abdul Karim Soroush. When he said that the Quran is divine, it is a word of God, we believe that. We would not be Muslims otherwise. But if that word of God goes to the human mind and its interpretation comes out from the human mind, is it any longer divine? When you have a corollary to that, that actually shakes the very foundation of what is called the sacred knowledge, which becomes questionable now, because it is interpretation of a ghair masoom. It could be the most learned of the mujtahideen. He is not a masoom. And if there are thinkers today who will think, they should not be banned. They should be encouraged to engage with the community and say that let us have that robust conversation. The spirit of inquiry that Hassan Bhai talked about, it was that spirit of inquiry that actually took us where we are, and then complacency sets in, and then we say, bas Maulana ne puchi jo. મારે ગાડી લેવી છે તો બધું ગૂગલ કરીને મને ખબર છે કે કયા મોડલની ગાડીમાં કેટલા પૈસામાં what am I going to get. If I want to buy a computer, I'm going to go Google everything under the sun about that. Why can't we do it something that affects our life and the hereafter? Why do you want to have this culture of dependency on somebody else? And then we lose that confidence. So, we do have a problem. We have the highest level of respect for the Marjaiyya, Ayatollah Sistani, and the other Marjaiyya who sit in Najaf, and some in Qum, I dare say, not all. But the Marjaiyya, which has till now operated on the bedrock of personal integrity of the Marja, is now being conducted by way of a proxy. This is where we as a community need to put our minds. I don't have all the solutions. Secondly, with the development that are happening in Iran, and Hassan Bhai alluded to that, you saw that as to the level to which this concept of Wilayatul Faqih and Ulil Amr is now being combined, that there is a dramatic change in the financial resources of the clerical establishment as we know it. Traditionally, the main financial resources of a marja and the following of a marja depended, conversely, it's a catch-22. The greater the following, the greater the flow of Qum's inflow. What has happened is it was the bazaar, it was the merchant class, it was the lay people who would actually pay. It came from the grassroots. Now, a mujtahid who does not have the support of a government would have limited financial resources. So, and the transition that we used to have, the idea of Ahl Khibra determining for us as to who the next most learned the alam is going to be, was the work of Ahl Khibra. It was not a government-inspired document which happened, and I happened to be in Iran at that time when Ayatollah Areki passed away, that a circular was issued by the Jamia in Qum to say that there are mujtahideen that you can follow. Fazil Lankarani, Taqi Bahjat, Ali Khamenei, Wahid Khorasani, Javed Tabrizi, Musa Zanjani, and Nasir Makarim Shirazi, all the Ayatollahs. Not by absence was the name of Ayatollah Sistani. At the same time, I come back with a piece of paper in my hand which I could not believe, Mu'mineen. What I am saying here is I have seen these things with my own eyes. I come back with a piece of paper, I show it to this man here and said, Mullah Sahib, translate this for me. I cannot believe the translation that was given to me, and my Farsi is not strong enough to understand this. The document contained an edict, further edict from Qum, which said that while any of these 6 should be acceptable to the people of Iran, as far as people outside Iran are concerned, it is only Sayyid Ali Khamenei who should be recognized as the marja. This is a fact of life. The idea of that transition, may Allah give Ayatollah Sistani and the other Marjaiyya, the traditional Marjaiyya who sit in Najaf, a long life. But when it comes to the transition over this community, I say this from this platform, and it is being recorded, this community will fragment. It will fragment, and everything that we have built up is going to be in jeopardy. Our leadership is sitting here. The president of Nasimco is sitting here. All the other elders are here. Our president of Toronto Jamaat is sitting here. The chair lady of Toronto Jamaat is sitting here. We have all these leaders, men and women. Please hear me out. We need to be cognizant of these facts, that these dynamics are changing. So now it has become a matter of political expediency who the marja is going to be. There's a paper, and I invite you to go and Google that paper. It's by Mehdi Khalaji from, admittedly, a centrist think tank in the US. But he's a Hausa student who now works for a centrist think tank. He says, Sistani, the last marja. And his prediction is, and I would give you an opportunity to do critical thinking on this, whether he's right, wrong, I'm not making a value judgment. But he has given two reasons. He said, one, it was the systematic decimation of Najaf as a school where the succession and the next round of scholars have not emerged after Ayatollah Sistani and his peers, like Agha Bashir and Agha Hakim and Agha Fayaz. These are the people who were there, his contemporaries. After that, there isn't. So that is one. Secondly, because Marjaiyat has now been politicized in Qom, this is going to be the end of the transnational Marjaiyya as we know it, under which we have flourished. So now we cannot just be nostalgic and say, well, we've done it in the past. My submission, Momineen, is that the Marjaiyya as we have known it for the past 200 years is not going to change. It's already changing. The change is in place. A fundamental development in the political, social authority of our spiritual leadership requires a response from us. From us as a community, we have matured, Mu'mineen, over 150, 160 years, going through trials and tribulations. We have matured as a community to understand our spiritual responsibilities. Why are we trying to rely on others? Why do we have this? Why do we have this culture of dependence? We are a mature society. Let us have that confidence. While we talk about our identity, while we talk about our culture, we must also talk about who is going to guide us from a spiritual and a religious perspective. What I'm saying is nothing new. I didn't suddenly wake up and say this must be done. 30 years ago, published in Marjaiyya wa Ruhaniyat by Ayatollah Mutahari, he advocated a concept of a Marjaiyya by way of a body, not a single individual. Shaheed Ustad Mutahari was transported away from Qum to go to Tehran to say, don't pollute the thing here. Just go in the university, do what you want to do. He was shunted because of these thoughts. And then this man here, whom we remember so often, he was my mentor and a mentor of many, Siptain's mentor. We worked with him for so many years, so close to him. He could foresee. Siptain was this 10 years ago? No, more, 17 years ago. The lectures on Marjaiyya, you were present, I was present at those lectures. 94. These are his words. And these words are available on a CD published by the World Federation. He said, Marjaiyya has to be changed. It should be in a form of a body, otherwise it will not be acceptable. He foresaw this day coming. Marjaiyya of Ummah has to be in the form of a committee as a body where the issues of the community are tackled in the form of an institution. And I quote his exact words, and these are there on tape. He said, in the fiqh, the marja of taqlid I accept. Meaning that when it comes to jurisprudence, and when you look at the risala of the Marjaiyya, the great Marjaiyya, few changes are there. The way we do wuzu and the muamalat and all the other things are pretty much the same. In terms of the fiqh, Marja Taqlid Mullah said, I accept. In Marja of Ummah, there has to be a change. We have come to that place now. Mu'mineen, we talk about the youth, we talk about the next generation, how they are not here. Why are they not here? Why are they not engaging with us? Why are they not engaging with us? We continue to, sometimes I say that our centers, mashallah, this center accepted. The whole 100,000, not just Mark, all 100,000 square feet. But sometimes what we have is that when we build what we call homesickness centers. It was like this in Zanzibar and Kilwa and Moshi and Tanga and Pakistan, in Karachi and in Ahmedabad and whatever. So when I go to the mosque, I want to have the same feeling. I call them homesickness centers. Our children require wellness centers where they'll be positive. They will feel the energy of the great faith that we have so that we can make this into a nation. So, we do need to think out of the box, as I keep saying. It's like a broken record. I keep saying this everywhere. We need to think out of the box. You know, when can you think out of the box? First you have to identify that there is a box. We have not come to a place where we actually accept that we are in a box. And if we don't accept that there is a box, then we can't get out of it. Critical thinking, culture of dependency must go. The awakening project that Siptain is working on, the thought-provoking lecture that Hassan Bhai gave, this is all part and parcel of the critical thinking to say we as a community are blessed like every other community. To think for ourselves is given us quwwa-e-aqliya to be able to move forward. You know, people are afraid of differences. Well, let me quote Ayatollah Sistani himself. Hassan Bhai, you sent me this which was recorded by Sheikh Mustafa Jafar in a communique by Ayatollah Sistani. He said, we should learn to live with our differences and unite. We want everything in black and white, only one way. There is nothing like one way, Agha says. The diversity has to be utilized to strengthen ourselves, then we'll be able to succeed. It is not only one way, that one leader says one thing, it has to be only one way. Sometimes, in terms of our management, we have a democracy that shames the British. But when it comes to spiritual affairs, why do we get cowed down? Why? I leave you with just one final thought. I said this, and I repeat, I said this in 2000 at the World Federation Conference, that what we need today, Momineen, is to meet the challenges of the day, not with an unquestioning observance to convention, nor just for the fascination of the novel, but with a spirit of revitalizing the pristine Islamic values and traditions. And we must seek to enhance this institution. I meant World Federation at that time, I mean every other institution, through the concepts that drive their nourishment from the spirit of Islam, which are at the same time fitting to the needs of time. Our scholars, our thinkers, our intellectuals need to come together and start thinking about creating such a body, which will work with the direction provided we have direct contact, without the prism and without the filters, that we will have a body. We may have a faqih that can guide us on jurisprudence. With that, I say, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.